Hello, my name is Professor Hudson, and you are about to view narrated PowerPoint lectures for Chapter 10. Chapter 10 deals with meiosis and sexual life cycles. Please be aware that this PowerPoint lecture on meiosis and sexual life cycles contains materials from several textbooks. It corresponds to Chapter 10 in your customized textbook. Please be aware that some of the figures may be different from your textbook. Also be aware that the content in this lecture may be worded in a slightly different order than Chapter 10 of your textbook. Chapter 10 of your textbooks covers 4 concepts. The various segments of this narrated PowerPoint lecture will cover these 4 concepts in sections. The 4 concepts to be covered in Chapter 10 are offspring acquire genes from their parents by inheriting chromosomes, fertilization and meiosis alternate in sexual life cycles, meiosis reduces the number of chromosome sets from diploid to haploid, and genetic variation produced in sexual life cycles contributes to evolution. Let us begin. Living organisms are distinguished by their ability to reproduce their own kind. Heredity is defined as the transmission of traits from one generation to the next. In a literal sense, children do not inherit particular physical traits from their parents. Children inherit genes from their parents that manifest themselves as various traits. Variation is demonstrated by the differences in appearance that offspring show from parents and siblings. Let's talk more about heredity using humans as an example. Here we have a karyotype. Humans have 46 chromosomes, which is illustrated by this karyotype. The complete number of chromosomes that a species has in its somatic, also known as body cells, is referred to as the diploid. Human diploid is 46 chromosomes. On the 46 chromosomes are genes. Genes are segments of hereditary information that encode for proteins used to build an organism. All of the cells in your body are diploid except for the sperm and egg cells, which are haploid. Haploid cells have only half of the full set of chromosomes. Why do you think the sperm and egg are haploid? That is correct. If you said that the sperm and egg are haploid because they have to get together to restore the diploid, you are correct. If the sperm and egg were not haploid, the number of chromosomes an organism has would double with each generation. By keeping the sperm and egg haploid and restoring the diploid only through fertilization, the number of chromosomes that the species is supposed to have remains constant. Children often look like their parents or at least some member of the family because parents pass on their genetic information to their children via sexual reproduction. Men create sperm and women create eggs that each contain the haploid number of chromosomes with their genetic information encoded in genes. The sperm and egg are also called gametes. Let's take a closer look at the chromosome and how it is organized. Chromosomes are made of nucleic acid. They contain genes, which are segments of hereditary information that encode for proteins. Genes are sequences of DNA from hundreds to thousands of nucleotides long, and each gene occupies a specific place or locus on the chromosome. In the figure at the very top of this slide is a chromosome that has not reproduced duplicated DNA. On this chromosome, which looks as a single strand of DNA at this point, I've circled in red what would be the genes. As mentioned, genes are segments of hereditary information that encode for proteins. All of the 46 chromosomes present in human body cells and the 23 present in the sex cells have genes located on them. As we mentioned when we talked about the cell cycle with mitosis, during interphase, particularly S phase of interphase, the single individual chromosome will duplicate itself to make a single chromosome with two chromatids. The chromatids are attached at the region of the centromere. Notice that the duplicated chromosome with its two chromatids now has two identical copies of these genes. Half are on one chromatid and the other copies are on the duplicated chromatid. I've circled in red the centromere, which is connecting the two duplicated pieces of DNA, which are referred to as sister chromatids. One half is one chromatid and the other half is considered the second chromatid. They contain identical genes, and during mitosis and meiosis, at some point the centromere will divide and these two segments of DNA will separate. Sexual reproduction may combine different parental alleles in a single offspring. An allele is an alternate form of a gene. For example, you may have inherited genes for both brown and blue eyes. Brown would be one allele and blue would be the other allele. However, ultimately what you exhibit, i.e. which may be brown eyes, is determined by the combination of the brown and blue allele and which one was dominant. Combining useful alleles through sexual reproduction allows for much more rapid evolution. New combinations of alleles better adapt organisms to changing environments. Not all organisms reproduce by sexual reproduction. Some organisms reproduce by asexual reproduction. No sperm and egg are involved. Asexual reproduction is quicker and easier, but lacks the mechanisms for genetic variability that are so key to evolution and the survival of most species. In this figure are some examples of organisms that reproduce asexually, i.e. they do not have sexual reproduction. In the hydra, a new hydra plant is made basically by budding. And then certain plants produce asexually. In order to have sexual reproduction, for most organisms, there must be a production of haploid gametes. As mentioned, the sex cells or the gametes must be haploid for most organisms in order for the diploid to be correctly restored after fertilization. Meiotic cell division is the key to sexual reproduction in eukaryotic organisms. In meiosis, a diploid cell with paired chromosomes produces haploid daughter cells with unpaired chromosomes. Meiosis is a specialized cell division process that produces haploid sex cells. Let's take a closer look at meiosis. Note that in meiosis, cells will go through an interphase just as you saw in mitosis. So here we have a cell that is about to go through meiosis. if you look at this cell here, this cell has how many chromosomes? If you said 4, you are correct. This cell has 4 chromosomes. Note that there are 2 chromosomes from mom in red and 2 chromosomes from dad in blue.